What's up, you filthy commies? I have a review of the Joel and Ethan Coen film Hail Caesar. It's their newest film, came out a week or two ago. It's that film that's not Deadpool, so it's easy to find. It is, geez, I don't know how many movies they've come up with. I'm not even going to pretend to know. But it's the newest film that deals with Eddie Mannix, and he's played by Josh Brolin. Also in this film is Scarlett Johansson. Let's see, let me go down the list here. George Clooney, Alden Ehrenreich, Ray Fiennes, Tilda Swinton, Frances McDormand has a small part, Jonah Hill has a small part. Boy, what a nice little cast here. And Channing Tatum, excuse me. Basically, it's a fairly ensemble piece that mainly directs and centered around Eddie Mannix, played by Josh Brolin. And he is essentially a fixer, a studio executive whose job it is to make sure everything is cool. And this is back in the days, this is the late 40s, and this is back in the days of the studio system, where the studios did everything. Actors were all contracted. Everything was about, the system and making that particular studio look good, making Hollywood look good, and then making everything, good for red-blooded Americans. This is post-World War II. This is entering the Cold War with Russia, and everything had to have a nice smile and be decent. Problem is, people aren't perfect, and a lot of the actors make mistakes, and sometimes spectacular mistakes, and it's Eddie's job to make sure all that shit is swept under the rug. And it's tiring. It seems like he works all the time, and it affects his family life, and he's thinking about getting a job with the government, because they're putting together, I believe it's Boeing, Lockheed. Of course, this is when Lockheed is doing a lot of big, important work, and they're offering a beautiful job with tons of money and benefits, like 10 years, and he doesn't have to re-sign, but he still gets the benefits afterwards. And the hours are a little bit more 9 to 5 so this is all very tempting. But by the way, the Lockheed representative pretty much puts down his job, explaining this is real work that's actually important, not this stupid crap you're spending all this time doing. And the film is essentially him recognizing what he does is right, through at least what he feels is right. And what we see in the film is the main plot. Actually, there's several subplots, but the main plot focuses on George Clooney's airhead actor getting kidnapped by communist writers, and they actually the kidnapping is pretty funny, because they drug him, they take him out when nobody's noticing, and it takes about a couple of hours for them to figure out that he's been kidnapped and taken. They leave a note, a typical ransom note, but what's funny is Clooney's character wakes up, and one of the fascinating things about this film is the way they hold him. Is they just talk to him. They don't beat him or scare him or even tie him up. He gets up and starts walking around and runs into them in this meeting room, and they just basically talk to him, which is very interesting scenes. And you know what? I could see why. There was this thing, because there was this real kind of situation where there was a lot of the McCarthy hearings dealt with the fact that they believed that there were communist uprisings here and there within their country, but it didn't. Of course, it was not as horrifying as what they predicted, and what they were doing was more damaging than what was actually happening. But you could see why people at least went to meetings and checked out what this was, because what's interesting is they bring up some really good points, like, hey, this studio made millions of dollars on this project that this writer made. did he see any of that? No, he just got paid for the upfront fee, and they made, millions, billions, off this project. Same thing here, same thing there. And what's interesting is we're actually watching between the future is what they call themselves versus Capitol Studios. Little on the nose there, guys. Capitol Studios. And yeah, there's kind of we have two ideas kind of butting heads here. We are watching the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia kind of being fought out in this more intimate setting through entertainment. And what I wish was maybe approached a little bit more is, there is capitalism at bay here with the studio, but in a way they're kind of like creating a dictatorship of themselves. And of course we know, through history that these communists are getting involved with what became a dictatorship anyway. I mean, with Stalin, communism was one of those things that's like, yeah, it looks great on paper, but it's kind of vulnerable to corruption. Like anybody at the top can just rule, and that's it. Yeah, you can all think you're sharing, but it's not the right way. And yeah, but at the same time, we have this sort of corruption of capitalism too, with people at the top ruling and controlling everybody, underneath. I do wish that was maybe approached a little bit more. But what I love is that we watch this whole film. This whole film takes place during the course of maybe a day or two, and it's Mannix's decision process, trying to decide if he wants to go on this job, and it's exhausting him. It's tough, but at the end of the day, he realizes what he is doing is important. What he is helping create an image for all the world to see. It's film. It's America. Hollywood is America's face. And it's important that people see a good face. Who cares how it's done? And we get to see that all throughout the film. What's interesting is a lot of these strong arm tactics that are done to make everything look good are somewhat questionable, but in the film they seem to be paying off. Like Scarlett Johansson's character has a baby, and the father is, I don't know, somebody, and she's kind of America's sweetheart, and she's kind of an asshole and kind of a foul mouth. And he kind of sets up an idea to have her baby adopted by someone, and then she adopts the baby back, and it makes it look like she's just adopting a child instead of having it. But she ends up falling in love with that person. They only know each other for a day, so who knows how that's going to turn out. And also, probably Aldrich's character, Hobie Doyle, is probably the best character in the film. He's this Roy Rogers type of cowboy actor. He only gets to say a few lines here and there. He doesn't have to say anything deep or do any major speeches or anything like that. He's very good at roping and horse tricks and shooting tricks. So they've kind of like designed a whole series of films around him for his talents, and they decide to change his image and put him in an arty film called Merrily We Dance. And that scene where he comes in and does his first scene with Lawrence, played by Ray Fiennes, is hilarious and awkward because he just is way out of his element and he can barely do a line. And one of the things, and it's easy. One of the things I like about the Coen brothers is, they can make characters like Hobie Doyle, who are simple kind of country people, and you can laugh at them and with them and still sympathize and even relate to them. They're usually full of fleshed out characters, and Hobie is here. Hobie is great, and he's trying, and he's actually turns out to be part of the plot. He's actually not a dumb character, which is interesting, because one of the things he Maddox really has to tell him. Don't explain how, but there's a scene where Maddox confesses to him that George Clooney's character has been kidnapped, and they're still trying to figure it out. And it's Hobie who thinks, "Well, have you checked the extras? That's exactly who kidnapped him." He's not a dumb guy, which I think is terrific. The way he's written, Maddox sets him up to change his image completely, and even setting out with this actress who is kind of a Karma Miranda type, and their date is rather adorable, and Hobie ends up saving the day actually with the Clooney character too. So he's just an awesome character. This film, compared to some other Coen Brothers films, isn't as dark and isn't even that multi-layered. It is. When you look at it, it's not tremendously serious, but it does have some really thoughtful ideas in it. And there are times where you think, oh, okay, when somebody get their head blown off? To be honest, I'm sorry, I'm spoiling this, but nobody gets their head blown off in this film. But that's the thing with Coen Brothers films. Like, you never know with which film you're going to get. This is definitely a lighter Coen Brothers film. It's nonetheless more enjoyable. I really enjoyed this film quite a bit. I am going to give this a strong 4 Ram Chips out of 5. Definitely check it out. If you're a fan of this kind of genre, if you're a fan of the Coen Brothers or of old classic films, or just it's a very funny comedy. And it's a very funny comedy, unlike, I don't know, so many fart joke bro comedies or whatever, like, people getting smashed in the face with CGI thrown around or something like that. I'm just like, that's all over the place. This is just a comedy. It's very funny, and it's a comedy with ideas. I definitely recommend it. It's definitely worth seeing in the theater. Or definitely check it out when it hits DVD or Netflix, or however the hell people watch movies nowadays. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, push the button, Lindsay.